In 2024, we think of offenses of the NFL being some of the most potent in history of the game, especially at the professional level with the rules and everything else going on, innovations. But how does it stack up to historic times of other NFL offenses? You may be surprised in today's infographic, and it's all coming up in just a moment.
This is the Pigskin Daily History Dispatch, a podcast that covers the anniversaries of American football events throughout history. Your host, Darren Hayes, is podcasting from America's North Shore to bring you the memories of the gridiron, one day at a time.
Hello, my football friends. This is Darren Hayes of PigskinDispatch.com. Welcome once again to the Pig Pen, your portal to positive football history. And it is another Wednesday, and it's infographics time. And we're going to cover some great statistics from the past NFL season and seasons beyond that to tell you some very historical records that have been kept and how 2024, the season that just ended, fared in those records. Tonight, we're going to go into offenses, the most potent offenses in the history of professional football. If you look at the AFL from the 1960s and the National Football League all the way back to 1920 combined, we want to look and see what offense scored the most points per game on average during a regular season and which season that was. So we have some really exciting things to talk about. Now, first of all, we sit there and looked at the top 200 offenses of all time in scoring per game. We took the total points and then divided it by the amount of regular season games that particular team made, and we came up with a point total per game. So that way it's fair. You know, it's not the 17 game season versus the 12 game season versus the 14 versus 16. We get rid of all that muck and take you right into what it is actually per game. And they all were 60-minute games, so that makes it fair. And to see how prolific the offenses were and how did 2024's teams result in there. Well, in the top 200, there were 10 teams from 2024 that made it. That just tells you how much offense was as part of that. So 10 of the 32 teams in 2024 in the National Football League made it in the top 200 all time for the NFL and the 10 years of the AFL in there. So first of all, let's go through those. So down at the bottom of that list is the Denver Broncos, who came in 198th with 25 points per game average. Not too bad. 196th was the Minnesota Vikings, where they had 432 points scored for a 25.41 average per game. So that is also pretty stellar. 148th place was the Green Bay Packers of 2024. They scored 460 points for just over 27 points per game average. And the Philadelphia Eagles, the world champions, Super Bowl 59 champions, scored 463 points for 27.235 points per game. So Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley and the gang were really racking up some points. 115th in National Football League history, the Cincinnati Bengals of 2024. Didn't have a great season, but offensively, Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and all those folks there were really racking them up. 27.764 points per game to rank 158th all-time in National Football League history. The 91st team is the 2024 Washington Commanders. 485 points with a rookie quarterback, 28.529 points per game. Amazing statistic there, especially when you have the rookie at the helm. In 67th place, this is the retreaded and remade himself Baker Mayfield and company with a lot of injured wide receivers all season long. Well, they ended up being 67th all-time in scoring, 502 points for 29.529 points per game, almost 30 points, very close to that total. We can look at the 44th team, and it's the Baltimore Ravens with Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry and company. They were 44th all-time, 518 points for 30.47 points per game. Not a bad average. the Buffalo Bills were in 36th place for 2024. The 2024 Buffalo Bills were in 36th place all time in National Football League. So Josh Allen and the folks there, 525 total points in the 17 games, 30.882 points per game. And the highest scoring offense in 2024 was the Detroit Lions, and they had 564 points, 33.176, and they ranked 16th all time. So we thought we had some pretty good offenses. We did, 10 in the top 200, but they weren't the tops of the list. We're going to come up with the top 10 all-time scoring offenses with an infograph coming up right in a moment.
After further review, we find that this action is good.
Okay, let's go over that infographic we popped up earlier. So the top 10 teams scoring all time, the 1950 Los Angeles Rams were number one on that list, 38.83 points per game. That's 466 in a 12-game regular season. Really good. The Denver Broncos of 2013 with Peyton Manning, 606 points in 16 games for a 37.875. The New England Patriots of Tom Brady make this list twice. They're at the 3 spot in 2007, 589 points for 36.81 per game. And 1961 AFL Houston Oilers of 513 points, 36.642 points per game. The San Francisco 49ers in 1948, they were in the AAFC that year. They scored 495 points in a 14-game season for 35.357 points per game and didn't win the championship that year, my dad. The 2018 Kansas City Chiefs, fond in our memories here, 565 points in 16 games, 35.3125 for them to take 6th place. The 2011 Green Bay Packers under Aaron Rodgers and company, 560 points in 16 games for an even 35 points per game. And the New England Patriots, Tom Brady again, 2012, 557 points in 16 games, 34.81. Minnesota Vikings in 1998 at a 34.75 average. And the New Orleans Saints with Drew Brees in 2011, 34.1875 points per game. So those are some really tremendous offenses. And we ended up having 30 offenses in the history of the game, the professional game, that were over 30 points per game. That was 54 teams had 30 points or better average during the regular season in National Football League history. And 3 of those were from 2024, when you talk the Ravens, the Bills, and the Detroit Lions this year. So some great offenses in 2024, some great offenses in the history of American football, and really surprising, the 1950 Rams are still holding on to that most points per game, and that's in a running era. Now think about it, that's right after World War II. The T formations just coming in, replacing the single wing. They just started going to 2 platoons, having an offense and a defense, and they had the most points per game. Looking at the high-flying aerial circuses that we have today and the passing rules and everything else. Remember, wide receivers could get mugged back then, and they often did. And today they're a little bit more lax on letting the receivers have their way and the defenders are hands off, or we get pass interference. So just some interesting numbers of old and new combined to go into there to take a look at that. And just as an example, to look at this, how many points per minute is that? Now, we've compared that in our book, The World's Greatest Pro Gridiron Team, the 1903 Franklin All-Stars. And I told you that's an era when touchdowns were only worth 5 points. And with that in mind, the Franklin All-Stars in 1903, 17 years before the NFL existed, they ended up scoring 0.97 points per minute. The Rams in 1950, the best offense in pro football of the NFL and AFL, 0.6472 points per minute if you look at 60-minute games for them. So that just tells you how potent. And that, remember, the Franklin All-Stars were 3 years before the forward pass was even legalized. So they didn't throw forward pass. It was all running the ball. So pretty tremendous offenses we've had over the years. And it's amazing how these older offenses in football and with the older rules have stacked up and actually are leading some of the more modern offenses, which the game is geared at the offense now and not so much tilted the defense's way. So some very interesting stats. You can check out more of our infographic. You can go to pigskinddispatch.com. We're going to display it on the front page, or you can follow the link in the show notes to get to the infographic and study it a little closer. Till next time, everybody, have a great gridiron day. That's all the football history we have today, folks. Join us back tomorrow for more of your football history. We invite you to check out our website, pigskindispatch.com, not only to see the daily football history, but to experience positive football with our many articles on the good people of the game, as well as our own football comic strip, Cleat Marks Comics. Pigskindispatch.com is also on social media outlets, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and don't forget the Pigskin Dispatch YouTube channel to get all of your positive football news and history. Special thanks to the talents of Mike and Gene Monroe, as well as Jason Neff for letting us use their music during our podcast.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com.